Hi there, Jayco owners. Today on your 2018 Jayco Greyhawk, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install JR Products multi-device wall charger. And this is what our charging outlet looks like when it's installed. It will mount flush against the wall inside your motorhome or travel trailer. And it'll provide you with 2 USB ports as well as an auxiliary 12-volt outlet. USB ports operate at 5 volts and they have a maximum output of 2.1 amps. Our auxiliary outlet here operates at 12 volts and provides between 10 and 20 amps depending on the gauge wiring you're using. Smaller gauge such as 18 is only going to let you get up to about 10 amps, but 14 gauge wire will let you maximize this outlet up to 20 amps. You also want to remember that you have to make sure you install the appropriate circuit protection for the amperage you're planning on drawing from the outlet. And to help give you an idea of where you can mount this in your motorhome or trailer, the unit measures 3 1/8 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall. You'll want to begin your installation by determining where you want to mount your panel. I highly recommend mounting it in a location where you have some existing wiring or components. Light switches are a good place to choose near there because they've already got power run to them, so you can easily get your wires routed. We're going to be putting ours underneath the bed because we have plenty of wiring here that we can easily access, and our customer wants it to be able to charge devices while they're sleeping. So this will be right next to the bed for them so they can easily reach their devices and plug those in. So I went ahead and pulled the mattress off, and there was just a panel right here with a couple of screws in it that opened up to expose this compartment. We're going to be putting it right here. I've gone ahead and marked out the area where we're going to be putting it. There are 2 lines here you see. There's 2 vertical as well as 1 horizontal. The horizontal is to help me make sure that everything stays level, and the 2 vertical lines are for the hole saws, the holes that I'm going to be cutting out with a hole saw. You can see there's 2 here on the back. We're going to be using a 1 3/4 inch hole saw. Anywhere between 1 1/2 and 1 3/4 will be good enough to allow both of these to pass through and not collide in anything, so you can have a flush mount. The 1 3/4 is on your maximum size, so you don't want to go any bigger than that, or else you could potentially start going beyond what the bezel here is that's going to hide. So you want to make sure you can keep everything hidden. So now that we know where we're going to place it, and we also know where we're going to be getting our wiring from, we can go ahead and start getting it mounted up. So with this panel here where we're going to be mounting it, this is actually a double panel. There's a thin interior wall as well as a thin exterior wall. So we're going to start with just a regular drill bit first, just to drill to pass through, and then that way we can drill from the outside in, so that way our outside panel has nice clean cuts, and the inside one here, it's not as important if we happen to have a little bit rougher cut on the inside. So we'll just line it up with our marks, and we're just going to drill straight on through. We've gone ahead and switched to our hole saw now, and we're going to drill through our wall. What I did find works fairly well when you're working with plastics or extremely thin material like the wood here. It's not a very hard wood. It's very soft, and it kind of comes apart easy. If you run the hole saw backwards, you actually get a little bit cleaner cut. That only works on those really, really soft surfaces. And now we've got that completed with one hole. We're just going to perform the same procedures for the other hole here. So now that we've got our holes drilled out, we can take our switch. I went ahead and popped the bezel off. This does just pull right off of there. There's just some clips that pop out. Then if you look at the lettering on it, you want to make sure you've got it upright. We'll slide our wiring through the hole. We'll then slide our switch in with the wiring passing through it. Line it up to where it's relatively level. We'll get 1 screw in it, and then we can finalize leveling it. These screws come included with the kit. We'll just use our Phillips screwdriver to run it in. This is a thin material here, so you don't want to go too hard on running it into that. We can now snap our bezel in place. We'll just lift up on the rubber cover for the 12-volt outlet. Line up the tabs, and just push it in place, and our switch is now mounted. Now we want to start hooking up our wires. If you need some wires as well as spade terminals and butt connectors to make all your connections, you can get those here at etrailer. The first thing we're going to do is make some small jumper leads, because on the back of our switch here, the USB ports have wires already on there with the ends pre-stripped for you, but the 12-volt outlet just has male spade terminals. So we're going to make some female spade terminal little jumpers here so we can connect onto those. I'm just going to make one black and one red. You don't have to use black and red. It's just easier to help determine which one is power and which one's ground after you've made your connections. It's nice for the next guy that might be working on it, or for you if it's down the road to help you remember. We're just going to slide our spade terminal on our wire after we strip it back. We'll then crimp our spade terminal on there. The ground is going to slide onto the silver post on your 12-volt outlet, so not the copper but the silver. So we're just going to slide our black wire right onto there. And then we're going to make another one. I did this one in red because it's going to be my positive wire. And that's going to go to the copper post on our 12-volt outlet. Slide that one on there. And you can, if you want, you could run these on separate fuses to have them completely independent and then run them to the battery. But we're just going to be running ours to the same fuse. We're just going to twist the two together. So we've got both the red wires, those are our positive for both the USB, and the ones we made for our 12-volt outlet. We'll then take a butt connector. We're going to slide it on there, and we'll crimp it on. And then we're going to do the same thing with our black wires there. And so now at this point, we just need to connect up power and ground to these two wires. We're going to be using the fuse box for our motorhome. There's some empty fuses, actually right over here. We're just going to be using one of those. Power is already run to the fuse box over there. So we're just going to be going from the fuse over to here, which gives us the power we need. And it also ensures that our circuit stays protected and it's easy to access in the fuse box right there. For ground, we're just going to be grounding it to the ground that goes to our inverter over here. And that'll give us ground. I went ahead and just used some duplex wiring to do that. So this duplex wiring here does have two wires inside. There's a white and a black. So I went ahead and separated out the black and the white wire from one end of our duplex wire. The white wire, I ran over here to the inverter and just grounded it right onto the inverter box. That'll give us our ground. And then for our power, I used the black wire that I stripped out of here. And that one runs to our fuse box. You can see here's the duplex wire where I separated out the white there, and then here's the black coming out of that duplex, and that just goes to our fuse box right here. This is a series of fuses that are found in our box, and all the posts that are at the bottom here, these are all empty fuses. So what I did was I put a spade terminal onto the black wire, and I just poked it onto the male spade here in our fuse box. Before I poked it on, I did remove the fuse. This is fuse number 18, the very bottom one. So I just pulled the fuse out of the fuse panel before sliding this in because I don't want to accidentally cause a short while I'm making my connections. I'll reinsert the fuse once I've got everything all wired up. So now I'll take the other end of my duplex and I've routed it over towards our panel that we just mounted. I'm just going to remove some of the sheathing here and give it a little cut. And a lot of times you can just pull this sheathing back to strip it off. Sometimes it's stubborn, you might gotta cut it a little more, but you can just take your snips or a razor knife and just kind of run it down this to cut it. The razor knife, it's a little bit faster, but there's a little bit higher chance that you might nick yourself a little bit. So using the snips like that works pretty well. Our white went to ground, so we're gonna strip it back. I'm going to go ahead and strip the black one here for power real quick, just because of the length of wires, and these strippers would be hard to get into the proper position once I make a connection. So we'll just get them both stripped back real fast while we can easily access them. So we'll just slide this into our butt connector there, and then we'll make our connection. And we'll do the same thing with our black wire here from our fuse box, which is our positive. That'll connect to our red wire here. Now, before you can test it out, though, you do have to insert your fuse. I recommend you always have some sort of fuse protection. We're using the fuse block that's incorporated into our motorhome, but we do have inline fuse protectors as well as circuit breakers here at eTrailer, so you can wire your own inline if you don't want to use one like this. We're just going to put this in, and that'll power us up. So now we just want to test it to make sure everything's working properly. Got my phone here, plug in my charging cable. First, we're going to plug it into the USB ports, make sure that those are working. And my phone is kicked on here. It shows that it's charging, 74%. Says I got about 40 minutes until full charge. We're going to go ahead and go down to the next USB port. And 74% again, it's charging. So now let's make sure that our 12-volt outlet's working. To do that, just got a small accessory here that adapts from a 12-volt to a USB. And then we'll just put that in our 12-volt outlet. And we're going to plug this. And I can tell it's already working because the little adapter does have a green light on it, which is lit up. We're going to go ahead and plug in our phone just to make sure. And once again, it vibrated and it shows we're charging. So it looks like everything's working properly here. So at this point, we can reinstall our cover here on top and put our bed back in place. And if you were doing this at another location, just clean up your wiring and everything and put your panels back on and you're ready to go. And that completes our installation of JR Products multi-device wall charger on our 2018 Jayco Greyhawk.